So it's my job to just look over the presentations, the conversations, the Q&A, and see if there's any themes that link them all together. And I think there are. So I've got just 3 quick points that I hope will give you some kind of takeaways to kind of both tie a thread through the talks and tie a ribbon around the whole event. So first of all, in fact, right off the bat, Eric was talking about how our own research initiative has evolved from WIMI, which really was a great name. It had a cool logo. Anyone remember the WIMI logo? Whatever, anyway. To WCAI, and how we've gone from this kind of pure academically oriented research shop to something that's much more involved with industry and students. And so the first theme is one of transitions. And Tom stood up here and spoke about customer analytics 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0. It's transitions and maturity. So this whole area of customer analytics, it really is, I mean, there's still a lot of growth out there. I don't want to suggest that moving to maturity means lack of growth. There's plenty of growth. But we're starting to come up with standards. We're starting to come up with a common language. And I think this is a really good sign. Again, I look at not only how the research centers changed, but how the nature of these events have changed. That when we used to run some of these conferences, usually focused on one substantive area or one kind of technique, it was all around, gee whiz, look at this cool stuff that we could do. But here we're focusing much more on implementation. And it's not only that it's just kind of a bunch of geeks and nerds talking to each other, but the fact that we have the kind of explicit blessing of Bill Hornbuckle, or we have the explicit blessing of a Mark Shapiro, that these presidents of organizations who aren't only giving some kind of passive blessing, yeah, go ahead and do that if that'll keep you happy, but who are actively interested in seeing these things through and investing incredible amounts of money and thinking about the scale of that experiment. Those are kinds of things that just wouldn't have happened on such a regular basis just a couple of years ago. So we've come a long way in terms of just how this field of customer analytics transitions and how it matures. And a big part of that is also letting go. And so I think one of the comments that might resonate the most is when Tom Davenport stood up here and said, you know what, data scientists, that's old news. And I think it struck a chord with many of us. And while maybe he was saying it just to be provocative, let me point out to you that Tom Davenport isn't often wrong. And it's not only how right he's been about customer analytics in general, but he was out there. He was the guy who kind of invented and then had the good sense to move away from terms such as business reengineering. Remember that? Knowledge management. I mean, it was Tom leading the way, but also knowing when some of these ideas, or at least the words used for them, would, well, jump the shark. And so it could very well be, maybe you heard it here first, that this idea of the data scientist, just that role, just that title rather, not the role, not the functions. Again, as we mature, we need more than this kind of one-size-fits-all set of words. So transition maturity is theme number 1. Theme number 2, and this is a theme that always comes up, but I think we're doing it well, which is bridge building. One of the reasons why we run these events, one of the reasons why we have this center, is to build bridges between academics and practitioners. And as Eric said so well at the beginning, usually that means is, hey, come listen to us. We have cool models. Go use them. I hope you see that this hasn't been that kind of event at all. In fact, this has really been a practitioner-led event. But it's bridge building in other ways, not just the academics and the practitioners, but lots of bridges being built across disciplines. So while we do have some folks who might say that their natural home, their natural role is customer analytics, I'm just looking around the room here and looking at just all the different discipline areas that are represented. I mean, I'm looking at VCs and private equity people, and I'm looking at CEOs, and so it's not just an analytics palooza over here. Again, we're recognizing that we're building bridges across entire organizations. And another theme of bridge building is cross-industry. And I said this earlier when I was talking about how the pharma industry is often not interested in learning from others, and you can just see how interested Pfizer is and how actively they've been doing that. And we're seeing that across the board here. I think it's great when we can have a gaming and hospitality company come up here, and all of you listening so attentively and realizing that the lessons that Sanjog and Josh had apply to you, and they absolutely do. So we really can learn across companies, across sectors, in a way that previously we would say, well, the way that we do things is kind of different. And the last theme here is the idea of owning it. So one of the last questions that was asked of Josh, and it had kind of almost an academic flavor to it, and instead of Josh saying, well, Sandrog could get me the answer to that, Josh said, my guys can get me that. The idea that this kind of expertise is being built right into the companies. So think about how many talks we had here today where there were consultants and clients, but they were both from within the same organization. Okay, so we really are developing all the right kind of expertise. And of course, we're looking to academics to do some of that R&D. We're very proud to play that role. But what we want to do is hand it off to the companies and then go run with it. And even in the case of Pfizer, where they're going outside to use Kaggle and come up with some of these good ideas. But the whole idea is once we know which ones we're going to use, we're going to build them and we're going to use them internally. So I think this idea of owning it, again, that's by itself a great example of the maturity that's taking place in this field, and companies standing up and saying, yeah, we're not just going to bring in some outside firm to do it. And of course, one of the corollaries of that is that instead of just viewing a lot of these analytics projects as just a one-shot deal, let's just come on in and help us make some millions of dollars. Again, one of the recurring themes is that we're going to be doing this over and over and over again. It's going to be getting better each time. It's going to be getting bigger each time. The idea of experimentation, I'm going to disagree with Sandrog on one thing. He said, like any good academic would do experimentation. Of course, good academics would do experimentation, but that's one of the things that needs to be absolutely everybody. I think that we need to see just much more, what were those words you were looking for? Dice, maybe it was cojones, I don't know, on the part of companies to go out there and run experiments, big, bold experiments, all times of year. I love it how companies will say, yeah, we're glad to run an experiment, but not during Christmas, okay? Enough of that monkeying around. We got a business to run. You know what? Christmas is the best time to run an experiment because you're running experiments to try to explain variability. That's when you're getting a whole lot of variability. So you actually want to be looking, you want to be seeking opportunities for experiments. You want CEOs demanding that there's going to be experiment after experiment being run. And we're getting all these great questions from Capital One over there, which is, again, just leading the way at doing it boldly and doing it successfully. So I hope that you've enjoyed the day. I hope that these themes do bring just a little bit more light onto what I think has been a very illuminating set of talks and discussions. And before we all go off and have drinks, we did acknowledge the entire WCAI team, but I think we have, because what's going to happen after this is everyone's going to come up to me and Eric and Ellie and say, good job, good job, good job. And we'll kind of gracefully accept your praise, but I think all the praise has to go to two individuals. I'm looking at one right over here, Debbie Shapiro, and where's Megan? There's Megan, Megan Gray in the back. These two women have done just extraordinary things to make the day possible. And so I hope all of us want to thank them. And unless there are any other items of business, I will call this meeting adjourned, and we will head that way for some drinks and continued conversation. Thanks very much.